Test, test, test.
Check, check.
On the best. G'day, it's Evan from LUXBMX here. Today we're going to talk about how to assemble your new race bike from the box. For safety reasons and ensuring the bike gets to you in one piece, these particular bikes come partially assembled. So there's only a few little bits and pieces you have to do, but to make everything a little bit easier, we're going to go through essentially what you need to do to get the bike rolling. So when you receive the bike, basically the first thing you want to do is quickly double check everything and make sure there's no damage to the packaging, everything's come to you in one piece. They are boxed this way to ensure there's less chance of things getting damaged, but it's always good to go and check things over. So most race bikes you'll receive will come with the rear section assembled, so all of your drivetrain, your rear wheel, your cranks, your stem, headset, forks is all assembled. So essentially all you need to do is install your front wheel, the handlebars, the seat and the pedals. Now we can obviously assemble these in the rack, but to show you how you probably would receive it, I'm going to do it all on the floor just to make it easier. So find yourself a nice safe space, nice bit of room so you can spread out and enjoy the process, but also so you can keep an eye on the componentry, and if you put anything down it doesn't get lost or that sort of thing. So cool. So when you pull the bike out of the box, you'll find the majority of the bike is all in one unit. So the handlebars, the front wheel, everything is zip tied together in a really nice safe package essentially. You'll have a box for your spare parts, so this will include your pedals and any other smaller componentry. Sometimes there might be pedal washers, other bolts, any other sort of thing, so keep that to the side. You'll have your seat, which is packaged like that, and you'll have your chain guard, which probably get rid of it. So with your side cutters, the first thing you want to do is just go over and safely, just be careful when you're doing that you're not damaging anything. Just safely removing all the packaging once again. The first step in assembly, once you've checked everything over, you've made sure that you've got all the components you need to build the bike, we're going to start with the handlebars. So once we've installed the handlebars and the seat, we can flip the bike upside down, put the pedals on, and it's a bit easier to work upside down like that. It's pretty straightforward. So we'll just undo these Allen keys. It's always good to have a little bit of grease in the threads, so really important. Just make sure you put a tiny little bit in the threads there. That'll ensure the bolts tighten up nice and evenly. Put a little bit of grease in the top, and that'll help the bolts tighten up as well. So if you don't have access to a grease gun, just take the bolt out and put in a grease tub, or put the grease in there by hand. So just rest the handlebars in the stem. Just lightly tighten these up in a cross pattern. Maintaining the gap on each side is the same, but it doesn't have to be tight. This allows you to move the bars and position them where you want them. Once you have them loosely in place, then you can turn the bars up. So now we're at the point we can snug these down. We can leave the finer adjustments till when the bike's completely finished, but we want it to be nice and solid so it doesn't move on you when you're setting the rest of the bike up. The next step we move on to is installation of the seat. Most bikes will require a certain amount of lubrication on the seat post. That makes it easier for the seat to go up and down when you need to adjust it, but it also protects the two components from corrosion or even becoming seized to each other, so it's really important. Some carbon fibre seat posts and frames will require a different compound, but for the most part grease is effective for this. This particular seat clamp is quick release, but you can do your finer adjustments with an Allen key. You just don't want to over crank it. At this point we can turn the bike upside down and install the front wheel and pedals. If you can, make sure that your seat is at a point where the rear wheel has play, so you can check that as well while you're upside down, just to make sure everything spins freely and there's nothing affecting the performance of the rear wheel. So you do get different types of front wheels or different types of front hubs and axle configurations. Some will be a bolt up, some will be a through axle. You might get 10, 20, 15, but this particular one is just a straight 3/8 or a 10 millimeter bolt up situation. So just check with the type of hub that you've got. There might be some subtle differences as how it assembles. With the bolts loose, you can make sure that everything sits in there nicely and the axle sits up in the dropout. So when you tighten it up, it'll be in the right position. If you find any kind of inconsistencies there or anything looks off, then just double check and see. Get in contact with us if you need a hand. So. Pedals. There's a couple of really important things you need to keep in mind, and it sounds simple, but sometimes it can be overlooked and done incorrectly. Essentially, you want to make sure that the right pedal goes on the right hand side and the left pedal goes on the left hand side. It sounds simple, but it can be mixed up sometimes in the heat of the moment. So this particular crankset also has an insert, and these little pedal washers are crucial. You have to use these to make sure that the cranks work properly. So without those, it doesn't support the insert, and the insert can actually come loose. So if you do have pedal washers, they sometimes can be attached to the cranks already, so you don't miss them, but they can also be in the packaging, so just keep an eye out for those. So grease on the pedal threads is really important. This will allow the pedals to tighten up efficiently and ensure they don't come loose. Okay, so we're working on the right hand pedal at the moment. This is clearly indicated on the pedal itself. You'll have a little R on the pedal, so just make sure that's the one you're going to be using. Obviously the drivetrain is on the right. If you're looking at the bike upside down, it's the other way around, but just make sure that the drivetrain is the right hand side and that's the pedal you're going to be using. So with the right hand pedal, you're actually using a right hand thread, so that makes it a little bit easier. So we have your pedal washer in between the pedal and the crank arm. Just loosely find the thread. So sometimes you can actually go backwards a little bit until you feel the thread engage, and then just wind them in with your fingers. So once the pedals are finger tight, you can then use your pedal spanner or a 15mm spanner. It just has to be narrow enough to fit inside the pedal tool, and we just want to snug them up. So now we move to the left-hand side. So the left-hand pedal has a little L. Now, being that it's a left-hand pedal, it will have a left-hand thread. If you ever see these little knurling marks on a pedal, that's an engineering mark which indicates it's a reverse thread. The reason you tighten these up with your fingers to start with is to ensure that you don't cross-thread them. It's much easier to find the thread with your fingers than it is with a tool. So that's the basic assembly as it is. We've got everything where it needs to be. The next thing is to double check the finer adjustments. At this point we can start to look at the bar angle, and you can do your finer adjustments for where you want to set the bars and also the alignment with the forks. While there is a little bit of personal preference when it comes to where your bars are going to be set or the angle of the bars, there's a little bit of a rule of thumb in regards to where to have them if you're unsure. We generally like to set the controls up, so your grips, so your hand position, in line with the front axle. So if you're looking straight down, the bars will sit a little bit further forward at the moment, but they'll be in line with the front axle, and that gives you really accurate steering. But yeah, there's personal preference. Some guys like to roll them forward, some guys to come back a little bit, but for the most part, that's a good setup. So this particular bike is equipped with disc brakes. The beauty of that is there's very little you generally have to do to set them up. V-brakes can be a little bit different, but for the most part, they're generally set up out of the box. But if you give them a little bit of a squeeze, once you've got everything assembled, make sure they function. Give it a little bit of a pedal. For the most part, the brakes will be set up out of the box. We ensure before they go out that everything should be functional. If you find there's anything that isn't quite working, just double check it and give us a yell, and we'll help you out. Cool, so that's it. Your bike's assembled and you're ready to roll. If you have any questions or anything you found wasn't quite clear enough, just hit us up in the comments or reach out to us at LUXBMX. But yeah, get out there and get rolling.